Hello and welcome everybody to the Truth Lab. This is episode number 5. Today's special guest, his name is DPAK, and the purpose of the Truth Lab is to listen, learn, highlight, and understand truth seekers' unique truth-seeking journey, how their truth-seeking journeys began, progressed, where they are now, and going. So I'm really excited to hear all about you, Deepak, and I guess we can start a little bit with your background. I got introduced to you through a mutual friend, Mickey Willis, and we all know about his viral film that went all around the world. And the musical, I think, is just incredible. So we'll definitely touch on that. But how about you let the audience know a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. First generation Indian. Parents are from India, South India. My dad's been a guy who's worked in science and NASA and places like that for a long time. My mom's computer science. So I grew up, here, born in Maryland, born and raised in Maryland, DC, in that area on the East Coast. And I was on like the reason I mentioned the Indian thing is because like the typical stereotypical path of Indians and Asians is to sort of go to school, go to college, get a graduate degree, get a PhD, or, be either a doctor or a lawyer or engineer or computer scientist. So I was following that path because that's all I knew. It was the only world I even was aware of. And went to school at University of Maryland, College Park, did pre-med, pre-law, studying neurobiology, physiology, criminology, criminal justice, graduated, did finance, got my series licenses, all at a pretty young age. But at the same time, I grew up with a really rich culture, deep with spirituality, a connection to the ancient, the roots of, the knowledge and the Bhagavad Gita, all these great philosophical texts that have been referenced and studied by people along the way and spiritual communities around the world, as well as a deep musical background. My parents are very musical too, and the Indian culture has a lot of music. So it was a nice, well-rounded time. So, and luckily I had that music, which leads into our story of where we are now, is that, I was growing up playing violin as a kid, but a lot of that kind of quote unquote ADHD wildness led me to just being more self-taught, teaching myself guitar, teaching myself piano, and not really fitting into the mainstream sort of, box of being in the orchestra and things like that, and became more of a creative. And I was writing my own songs when I was like 8, 9 years old and figuring out guitar at a pretty young age. And so fast forward to college, as while I was doing all this school stuff and studying hard to do neurobiology, physiology, and criminology, criminal justice, I was also having a blast performing on the weekends in a cappella groups and really getting involved in music as an extracurricular activity. But I think what happened was when I was doing that, I started feeling like, hey, I'm not sure if this school path is right for me. I'm feeling a lot more fulfillment, a lot more joy when I perform music, and when seeing the audience also filled with joy, and that music can create that almost like it's a casting a wizardry magic spell. Like you sing songs and people are smiling and joyful. Like that's weird, and like I loved music growing up. I remember listening to Michael Jackson and Radiohead and some of my favorite music, and how that impacted me emotionally, and the memories and all that feeling I got. I was like, I'm getting a lot more of that from listening to music, and also that I can do that and also share that with others and create that sort of feeling in others that I was getting from some of my favorite icons, including Bob Marley and people that became more, activist type musicians. So it all kind of came together in where I am now. I came to Los Angeles pursuing music and arts, dropped everything after I finished graduating, made my parents happy, got my degrees, and I said, hey guys, see you later. I'm out of here. And, came to Los Angeles. And so it's been an epic career out here. Along the way, I've done work with Disney, did 45 songs for Disney. I performed with Rihanna. Jason Mraz was a co-star in Modern Family. A lot of this industry stuff, but still figuring out what my purpose was. I was still, that wasn't necessarily the purpose, but at least it got my foot in the door. But then also along the way, studying a lot of economics, studying a lot of history, getting passionate about politics. And those were always separate worlds for me. I was always like, I'm over here being an artist, and I'm also over here having conversations about consciousness and breathing and meditation and spirituality and politics and history. And they were always separate. I never combined the two together. But around 2020, when the world changed, an old friend of mine, Mickey Willis, who we mentioned earlier, also had a big transformation of his own and put out a film called Plandemic, which went super viral. And he and I are old friends. We've known each other 15 years. And he'd been seeing me post a lot about politics over the years. Also knew that I was very into truth and exposing truths publicly on Facebook and online and stuff like that. So he'd been watching me do that. And so he and I connected. He reached out to me actually around that time, a little bit before that time, is like, hey, tell me a little bit about your background. And I have a background studying Ron Paul and free market economics, Rothbard, Austrian business cycle, Mises, like a lot of that, the Ron Paul school of free markets and libertarianism. And so that sort of led to us having a deep conversation and just becoming partners the last few years. And now, making the newest film, which is going to be out in a month, called Plandemic the Musical, after completing the Plandemic series of 3 movies, including The Great Awakening, which is the 3rd episode. And I wrote the song called The Great Awakening, which is in the musical now. So that's like the big summary of the beginning to where we are now.
That's incredible. I mean, for one, I would say you're obviously a polymath, and then somewhat autodidactally, the way that you've self-taught yourself, but then you obviously went through academia as well, and it's amazing how you bring that all together and truly exemplify what it means to be unique, right?
Thank you. And my production company is called Universal Polymath Productions.
Are you serious?
That's the name of my label, my production company.
That's amazing. All right, so obviously it seemed like 2020 was a pivotal moment. Was it back then there was a vision for the Plandemic the Musical, or did that progress?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of stuff was leading up to that. Again, I was already publicly sharing, even in 2008, about politics and my positions, which were very opposing positions to people in LA. LA is very much a place where it's very left leaning. And I tried not to be about left versus right or Republican versus Democrat and focus more on issues, but being public about then, it was really about, hey, a lot of these things that I'm seeing that people are into in LA are very anti-freedom sentiments. And I was just speaking out against those. I wasn't necessarily like saying I'm against this person or that person. I like to focus on issues and policies. So fast forward 2012, same thing. 2016, I was very outward about things as well. And so in 2020, that was a big change where I think, again, Mickey had been traveling around, and he says that in his movies, like, hey, he was an avid Bernie Sanders guy, and he was traveling around, very left-leaning California guy that he is. And I was very much the exact opposite of that. Yet we were really deep friends this entire time. And I think something happened where he started seeing some things inside the campaign, traveling with Bernie Sanders and a few other things that started awakening him to things not being what they seem, and the veil being lifted. And so we had some deep conversations. I was like, hey, this is a lot of stuff that's been in the deception of media, in the history, everything we've been taught in schools. We were being taught about Keynesian economics in college, which doesn't really make mathematical sense. It's actually designed to create debt, and it's the opposite of the free market Austrian business economics. So 2020 is sort of just was a perfect slingshot, because like, hey, everything we've been talking about before about freedom and liberty being eroded is now happening at a quantum level in 2020 with suddenly mandates and, ways. And again, 9/11 was another example where, an occurrence happens, and the Patriot Act. So each time there's these major occurrences happening in the world, that's an excuse for government to get bigger and create more systems in place that are taking away freedoms, that are where people are voluntarily waiving away their rights because they're being compelled to do so, because they're being told something scary is happening. Everyone's like, oh, okay, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, here's your solution: more government. We got it. We've got the Patriot Act. We got this thing. We got that thing for your safety, for your security. And we saw that in 2020 happening on a massive level. For your safety, we're going to lock everything down. For your safety, we're going to mandate these things and mandate these vaccines and mandate these masks and things, which science can clearly show does not have any really validity. But that's not the science people are being shown, which is scientism. Scientism is the act of taking a specific science that serves the ruling class, which goes back to like thousands of years of history, where the scientists work with the king or Galileo or all these different people to provide the science that served a narrative that was easier to rule with. And if you were a scientist and said, hey, wait a second, I just did a study and I found this other thing, and then all of a sudden you'd get killed or beheaded back in the day. Nowadays, you get defunded or you get debunked, or they pay Google really quickly to make you look like you're the worst scientist ever. That's the same thing as beheading people back 500 years ago. So that's what happened in 2020. So as far as the musical is concerned, Mickey put out the first movie obviously it went viral, over 1.5 billion views, and censored and canceled and not even allowed to be posted. People were posting it everywhere. And so a bunch of us started going to Austin. He moved to Austin. I almost moved to Austin as well with them. And Del Bigtree is a good friend of all of ours. He was already in Austin. And so we were all kind of there, and JP Sears and a bunch of like really close friends of ours that were already there in that area. And I was definitely tempted to move, but I just love my ocean and my mountains. And we can get back to that story later, because I have some reasons that I stayed in California too that are bigger than that. But we were at Thanksgiving at Del Bigtree's house in 2020, and we were all jamming, sitting around the table, about 20, 30, maybe even more, and people were having some wine and things were getting a little silly, and I had my guitar and I was playing some songs, and it started getting really silly. And we were jamming and freestyling. Mickey, by the way, secretly is a ridiculously good singer. Also, he used to have a band back in the day. He was like a rock singer back in the 80s. He did music videos. So, that's another super skill of his.
Because I don't want to cut you off, but I got introduced to him through the Luminaries,
Oh, nice.
Your free energy. It's time for free energy.
Yeah. And that was my crew, was the Luminaries. And I had a band back in that, you have to bring back some memory, Jay Brave and a bunch of friends. And I had a band called The Bolt, and then another band called Breath of Light Tribe. And we were all playing together at Temple Bar in Santa Monica with the Luminaries and my best friend, Mikey Mowgli from the Mowglis. It was like a collective, and Mickey Willis was producing all those Elevate films, was doing all the music videos. And so that was like all part of our whole crew, the conscious LA scene. And we were all out here doing peace and love type music, and everything was all peace and love, until it became important to also like start learning about rules and boundaries and what's going on with the bigger systems, and that, peace and love is at the core, but we still also need to understand, about rights as well. And so that's kind of what happened. We were in 2020 jamming around the dining table, singing songs about freedom and singing songs about the pandemic or the plandemic. And then all of a sudden I started jamming. Exactly. The plandemic, the scamdemic. And then I started jamming some lyrics like Fanthony Ouchie and Kill Bates, and like kind of playing with the names a little bit and being funny. And then like someone like kind of whispered or said it loudly behind Mickey's like, yeah, you guys should make a musical. It was sort of like a joke. And then Mickey got like a twinkle in his eye, and he kind of looked at me and he's like, we should make a musical. And like, everyone else was kind of like not taking it seriously, but I know Mickey, and when he says something like that, he's serious. And his wife Nadia was there, and she knows the look when Mickey says something like that, when he has that serious face, like he's dead serious. And a year later, in the end of 2021, he hits me up and he's like, hey, DPAK, it's been a year. Just got some good news for you. We got the funding, and we're gonna start making the musical. So in 2022, around March, April, we started shooting, and until then, I spent 3 months just writing the entire thing, writing all the songs, writing The Great Awakening, Let the Freedom Ring, and a lot of the big songs that you guys are going to be hearing soon. The movie's going to be out in a month, so we're getting ready.
That's exciting. Oh man. I mean, when you kind of to backtrack, I couldn't help but think of, and you're aware, the problem, reaction, solution. Also, though, the double whammy with the predictive programming of stuff, whether it was COVID or 9/11, like when we look at things like the Olympics, I think it was 2012 in London, there's a giant, Grim Reaper or, demon or something that's going around with a big needle. You get what I'm saying? So it's just really,
totally.
It's such a powerful counter to realize, like what you said earlier in this interview about the passion you have for just seeing people smile, and that, for lack of better words, contagious energy of enthusiasm. And, when you're performing and everybody's kind of on the same wavelength when it comes to feeling good and smiling. And then to realize, like, yeah, all the pandemic films were very powerful, but to be able to weave in a musical to it is really impactful. So I can't wait to see it. I've been seeing, because I don't know offhand how many cities that it's premiered at, but it seems like there was kind of a strategy to delaying the online streaming and actually getting, people together to see it in different areas. So I think that was smart.
Absolutely. And then you named that good point right there about joy, and about the films they're a little serious, they're serious nature, as they need to be, because they're documentaries and they're presenting some pretty serious information. But at the same time, you can walk away feeling like a little bit like, heavy or something like that. But it's also important to learn information and to have that. And Mickey does such an amazing job with his cinematography and his storytelling of creating a captivating story to tell truth through these documentaries. At the same time, like you just said, the motivation for the musical was joy, was love, was unity, was bringing people together with art, and also just that right brain, because the left brain is where it's very logical. It's where a lot of the documentary might sit, is in that space, and to bring in the right brain and bring in the heart energy, and Mickey is definitely certainly an artist as well, again, as a singer and as a musician. And it's been amazing to work with him because he's got such a musical background that he was able to really work with me in the most perfect way. Because I've worked with a lot of movies and films. I've done a lot of Hollywood films, in LA, where the director may not know the music as well. So they're saying things and it takes a while to understand what they really mean because they're not speaking the musical language. But with Mickey, it was like we had a beeline for clarity and communication. He could speak to me in a way that directed me, and then I could send things back to him. And we sort of had a beautiful partnership making this. And again, bringing the joy element, like we just said, that was my purpose of even getting into music, was to bring light and love to people, and to be able to bring that into film. And with the reach that Mickey has, and to have my songs be able to reach the world, is just such a blessing to have that partnership and to be able to work together. And also, he brought out really the best in me as an artist and a songwriter and as a producer, because I've been avoiding producing all these years. I'm like, I'm just an artist. Let me get someone else to produce my music. But for this project, I really, stepped in and became the producer as well, and learned a lot of production skills on my own music that now I can take into my own albums. And so it's been a learning experience these last 2 years of songwriting and production that I feel like I'm excited to now share with the world. And, we've done Vegas. We did a premiere in Vegas, as you were just mentioning. We did LA, the Malibu Film Festival, which we actually won the film festival. And one, yeah, whoop, I just dropped my camera. Yeah, thank you. We won the film festival, including a couple awards here, which we just got, which I can show you guys, which is the best of festivals right there. So we won the top award, and also I got the best score for the film. So that's kind of cool. And yeah, and I think it's not necessarily about like winning an award or anything like that. It's not like, oh yeah, we won an award. It's more like a sign that the tides are turning, because it's Los Angeles. It's a place where a lot of this stuff was censored a few years ago. And now suddenly Plandemic 3, The Great Awakening, Mickey's film, is winning the Santa Monica Film Festival for Best Documentary. And then all of a sudden we're winning the Malibu Film Festival for Best Picture overall, in Los Angeles, of all places, where, again, a lot of the stuff has been censored. So I think that's a good sign that people are starting to wake up a little bit more to truth. I mean, I know a lot of people are still, thinking that we're just crazy conspiracy theorists out there. But, from the front lines, from talking to doctors, from being out there, from seeing like real people, real patients, and and knowing that there's doctors and people that were literally, told to do things that were going against their oath, that were unethical, and that they wanted to stand up and actually help their patients. And for that reason, they ended up being either fired or somehow, some kind of negative, whatever it's called, when your license is threatened, whatever it is. A lot of negative things happen to people that were literally just trying to do the good thing. And so I think I feel pretty good to be a part of this and be on the right side of history on this, which maybe some may not realize for years to come still.
So kind of, how many irons are in the fire? Like, based on this success, where do you see this going when it comes to truth, not just truth seeking, but like helping to share the truth through this creative musical content?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, like, the musical content is just only growing. I'm getting inspired every day to write more songs for the movement. I'm thinking, again, I always think of people like Bob Marley, who did more than just write some cool songs or write songs, romantic songs, which he did too. And I've written, certainly, like, I've certainly experienced love and written many love songs as an artist, which I think, Coldplay, some of my favorite bands have done, and even Michael Jackson. But there's a point where a bigger calling comes, where you feel like, hey, the world is there. And like, I feel inspired to help the world. And Michael Jackson wrote songs like Heal the World. And Bob Marley wrote these big activism songs to bridge political parties together. He did these big, amazing peace concerts in Jamaica, because there was political divide and unrest at the time when he was doing that. And he felt called to action, to write songs that could bring people together and bring unity. And that's sort of where I think things are now, again, historically, like where there's a massive divide, there's massive polarization in the world, in politics. People aren't even speaking the same language anymore. I mean, it was only 20 years ago that Democrats and Republicans could at least have, they might agree to disagree on issues, but would still, have a conversation about it. Now it's just like you disagree on one thing and you're the enemy. And I think a lot of that's been orchestrated by our media narratives and by indoctrination in school, and people been made to think about concepts like white guilt and things like that are introduced only in the last decade, where from what all research has shown and all graphs have shown, race relations were only race issues were decreasing. Race relations were getting only more positive over decades and decades and decades until around 2008, 2009, when the media narrative was shifted, and a lot of the information became about white people being made to feel guilty, and a lot of like African Americans being told that they're victims, when a lot of them were coming out of that narrative. They were starting to feel like more empowered. Society's been evening out, and now it's been almost taken backwards through a lot of the narratives of just brainwashing and NLP and types of language that make people on one side feel like victims and make people on the other side feel guilty. And that whole thing has created a lot of strife. And so I'm feeling like called to create more art, to create more music, to share and to bring people back together, like, in a Bob Marley type of way. And Mickey's making tons of movies right now. It's countless how many movies he's doing. And now we've got massive campaigns coming up. We've got the Independent National Convention coming up in a couple weeks in Denver. We've got the Rescue the Republic massive rally, probably 200 to 500,000 people showing up in DC in a couple weeks, which I'll be one of the headliners at as well, along with 5 Times August and Skillet and Tennessee Jet and other musicians. We've got Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr. There's talk of Joe Rogan and many other big names showing up at this event. I know that on the bill already, Russell Brand's one of the headliners. He and I are going to be doing a collab together at the event. So it's, it's a lot of that, that's you asked the question of like, what's coming up next. It's all of these events are coming up next. A lot of new songs I'm writing are coming up, and I'm excited to release them to the world and just start playing bigger and bigger shows and concerts, where people can come together and celebrate unity. And maybe at these events, people can start forming more community together and start realizing that we're not alone in this world, and there is an independent movement growing, and we don't need to be stuck in the duopoly, and that we can actually organize and unite and take our power back and stand up and not comply with mandates that aren't serving us. So I feel like there's a lot of possibility, and that music can be one of the pieces to activate that film, and also just, great podcasts. And so, my goal is to be involved as much as I can and just really try to help people as much as possible.
I love that, man. You sound like quite the peacemaker, because I've reflected on that a lot recently, how important it is for people to just focus on what they agree in their unity. And there comes a point when like we're really in a flow state and we're focused, whatever differences we have kind of just fade away because we're in the moment, we're present. You know what I mean? Like, and you're just enjoying, and next thing you know, it's amazing what's possible, like in that space. And obviously, a little bit of me feels like when you bring up stuff like Republican versus Democrat, or white versus black or brown, there's kind of this idea that really it's like it's the slave masters versus the slaves to a certain extent. I think. Have you seen Jones Plantation? I shared it with you. Have you looked into that at all?
I didn't see that yet, but
Okay.
sounds familiar to think the ways I think.
I highly recommend it. So it started off by a guy named Larkin Rose.
Oh, I know Larkin.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so he made something he called the Jones Plantation. It's like a 12-minute YouTube video that obviously should have a lot more views than it does. But last year, a feature film came out about it. That's almost like 2 hours long. And
Awesome.
because of the last guest I had on the TruthLab, I literally watched it right after, because, he describes himself as a volunteerist trying to help people like, overcome the mental slavery of status.
Yep. That's basically that's the world I'm in. I if I was to put a label on myself, I would be that too. Volunteerist, anti-statism. His book, The Most Dangerous Superstition, is usually right there on my desk. It's actually in my car right now. And
the Bhagavad Gita and
I got the Bhagavad Gita, and right now I got Start with Why, which is like getting into your why.
Yeah.
And then in my car right now, I got Rick Rubin in there. I've got Larkin Rose in the car. I've got Atomic Habits.
Nice.
But I've always, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
try to
hoping.
keep it going. Yeah, but Larkin Rose, I've met him before. We've done an event together. I was at Music and Sky, which is another truth and freedom type event a few years ago, and he was there as a speaker, and I was there as a headliner musician at that too. So the Music and Sky is another part of our community that's expanding and growing into the volunteerist awareness. Confluence is another event. Alex Zeck's like one of my like close friends and brothers, and he's really deep in the volunteer space as well, and helping people step into stepping into secured party creditor status, and things like that we can get into on another conversation. But there's lots of different things that people don't realize are possible when understanding the core of common law and governance and how it was actually designed originally, and that a lot of the laws that we see aren't necessarily required unless you comply with them, unless you voluntarily agree with them. But you can also completely unplug from that if you want, and really step into owning your body, owning your person, owning getting into your public fiction and those kind of conversations as well. And Larkin's deep in that world. I've been deep in that world for like 15, 20 years. So
How did you come across that?
just again, self-discovery, just asking questions, always being wondering, like as a kid, again, I was as a young kid, always questioning authority. I was told not to stare at the sun. I would just go stare at the sun. And I realized that I was completely fine. And then I find out, decades later, that sun gazing is like an ancient practice that's been around that increases your pineal gland and makes you more aware. And I'm like, interesting. I was told by authorities not to stare at the sun. I was told by authorities not to walk barefoot everywhere. And I'm like walking barefoot everywhere all the time, feeling more charged, feeling more connected. And again, fast forward decades later, we find out grounding is an actual scientific thing. Walking barefoot on the earth increases your prana, your chi energy. So there's all these different things that I was told as a kid not to do. I would do them anyway. And I think that sort of led me down the questioning path of just being sort of like rebellious as a kid, from an innocent place, not like wasn't like anti-government, anti whatever. It was more like, why are they telling me not to do this? This doesn't make sense. I don't understand the why, which is the book starts with why, but like I didn't understand the why. Like, why am I being told not to do this? And if there's not a good enough explanation, then it's to me just superstition. And I'd like to now explore the science, and I have a scientific mind of what's going on, and discover for myself what's going on. Same thing with being in the cold. As a kid, everyone was bundling up in the snow. I grew up in Maryland, and there was blizzards in the winter. And I would just go out and play in my shorts and t-shirt, barefoot in the snow, and be fine. I wasn't getting cold. I wasn't getting frostbite. And again, fast forward decades later, people are now doing ice baths and all this different stuff. And it's like, it just that kind of always made sense that those things, being told not to do those things, seemed a little bit weird to me. And so I went deeper down the rabbit hole to find out that a lot of the media didn't make any sense. When I was in high school, I was like, the news just doesn't sounds like it almost looked like a bunch of clowns saying made up stuff. And it just always looked weird to me. I just never bought into it. It was always just like, what are they talking about? It just seems like they're just like rambling about nonsense, and they don't seem genuine. The vibration didn't seem like it was authentic. And I think I just felt that in my body, and just asked questions that led me down to Terrence McKenna and Graham Hancock, and getting into Illuminati and looking at the dollar bill and what's up with these pyramids and like, where do those come from, and all kinds of weird rabbit holes of studying, going into the Bible and the Rosicrucians and the history of the Freemasons and the Scottish Rite, and what's the history here and what's been covered up, which led into stories about the Tartarians and the ancient buildings and the magnets, and then the questioning the shape of the earth, and even NASA and those kind of paths, and like just every rabbit hole you can go down. I just ask questions, and I'm not coming from like, this is the truth or this is not the truth. I got questions, and I'm not gonna take that this is a fact just because it's hearsay, because someone said so. Like, just like you don't know when your birthday is, we all believe when our birthday is because someone told it to us. We don't remember our birthday. We just take it with a grain of salt, just like every other piece of information. And so as long as that's sort of the foundation of existence, is that everything is still sort of something that we're hearing from someone else, it's still possible that it could be a different possible reality. And it's worth staying open with healthy skepticism to the question.
Yeah, but it sounds like you have that intuitive common sense that if an authority is telling you not to do something, like you want to know why, and then through there, instead of just being obedient, not even
Right. Well, I'm the kind of guy that I follow like logic and natural law. If it's like nighttime and I'm at a red light, and like people are gonna hate me for saying this, but if I'm at a red light and it's night and there's nobody there, I'm gonna go, because it's illogical for me to sit there and not go if it's clear. I'm going to do it safely, and everything I do is with logic and safety, and like safety and care are the first things. I'm just saying that, like, if I trust that I'm going to be safe, have safety and care, then these other things that are out there are more. I'm not saying they're not important, that to maintain order. I think it's good to have those kind of things. but I come from the school of like the laws being guides and not as linear. And I think someone else might be like, that's not it's meant to be linear. And so, and that I respect you. I sort of respect those people that want to think that, but I'm still going to probably zip around you on the road at a higher speed and do it in a very safe and caring way, knowing that like I can be personally responsible and also be responsible for the consequences if I do something wrong. And I'm gonna do my risk assessment just like anybody else. Just like when people were being told to wear masks, my knowledge of science and my knowledge and now expanded knowledge of virology and the debunking of virology through a lot of people that I've studied, including my friends Alex Zeck and all, have shown me that a lot of that stuff is completely made up in the first place, and that there are no germ particles floating around in these little liquids and things. That they've done studies that they've done complete double-blind studies now, and even my friends have now done them in labs where they've compared samples of liquid particles from someone who supposedly has symptoms and someone who doesn't, and those liquid particles have the same results. So it's not like one of them has germs and the other one doesn't. They're just literally particles, human particles. And so there's something else going on. And if everyone's being told to look over here and say, hey, this is the cause, and then everyone's distracted by that cause, but maybe the cause is something over here, then that's a good way to keep people distracted, just like multiple other things that keep people distracted. But there might be other causes. Maybe there are particles being sprayed into the air with barium and strontium and other heavy metals that are being bioengineered that people are breathing in that are causing us to be more dehydrated. And maybe the water we're drinking is not that good, and we should be drinking structured water and having the right minerals. And drinking a bunch of water doesn't suddenly make you more hydrated, because it actually, if you think about water going down a stream, it rushes against rocks and it actually pulls the minerals along the way. So if you put the wrong water in you, it's actually going to suck minerals out of your body. And you actually need to have the right minerals so you can even absorb the water. So we haven't been taught a lot of this stuff, and everyone's being misled. And I think a lot of the disease that's out there, and I've been really getting into this deeper with an organization called Human Garage and Gary Lynham, who is an amazing organization with 40 million people growing worldwide. And now we've partnered up and we're doing events, including him being at the INC coming up and at the Rescue the Republic event. And they have their events where thousands of people show up, and they're helping people with fascial maneuvers to relieve trauma from the body, and helping educate people on how to have the right water and things like that, so that you can literally get rid of 99% of disease completely by yourself without taking any medicine or all these supplements out there, because your body actually has the ability and the intelligence to do this stuff. And we've just been led to believe we need to depend on systems, which obviously would make sense. If you're going to depend on the systems, that means you're feeding money into a system, and they have a money machine going where, where you can get people sick and provide them the cure both. And it's kind of like a loop that a lot of people are in. And I think snapping people out of that matrix is a big passion of mine, and into self-healing and self-empowerment space of like going, hey, wait a second, you can water fast for a couple of weeks and literally get rid of like 90% of diseases. You can change your entire diet and not eat processed food and eat a lot of plant-based options and eat sprouts and fresh food and get the right kind of water and take the right kind of minerals and literally drop almost literally every type of medicine and get rid of autoimmune diseases and get rid of and reverse vaccine injuries. All that stuff's possible. Just people just like need to get educated on it. And so I'm hoping to be able to spread that information through being a musician, getting in front of people. And then now that I have an audience through the music, I can actually talk about a lot of this other stuff.
Well, you shared with me before this started, you have a beautiful view. Obviously it's a city, but there's beautiful nature, the mountains and so on. Do you have a favorite place you like to go into nature? Because hearing all of this, I mean, so many thoughts come to mind. I mean, obviously, I think it's what Koch's postulates with like whatever it was, the basis of virology and germ theory,
Yep.
and stand up to scrutiny. But what I'm saying is, in simple terms, the body heals in a healthy environment. It's kind of why, I'm not sure if I shared with you, I lived in Kauai for almost 5 years, and I wish everybody could do stuff like that. I mean, I understand it's not realistic for everyone to live out there for years, but just being in a healthy environment, like you said, and I don't want to keep talking, but the last thing I'll say is, in Hawaiian culture, the Hawaiian word for water is Y, W-E-I. The Hawaiian word for wealth is Y-Y. So their whole culture was based on having access to an abundant supply of fresh water, and nowadays,
Totally.
we don't realize it. Yeah, we can have water filtration systems and so on, but it's a lot. And then if you looked into Dr. Emoto's work, I met Dr. Emoto
Me too.
Amazing, dude. He came to St. Pete, Florida, and did a workshop on his life work. But then we went to the Gulf of Mexico because there was a oil spill, and it was all about using, consciousness and intention to bless and heal. Not just the water, but all the life, and it was amazing. I mean, there was so much synchronicities that led up to that. It just is unbelievable. But anyways,
Yeah, no, he was great. I mean, he did an event. We did an event. There was an event in LA or in Long Beach called Live H2O many years ago. It was called literally Live H2O. It was about water, blessing the water. They did the Ho'oponopono prayer, the Hawaiian prayer there too. And Dr. Moto was a guest there, as well as I as a musician. So we were basically on the same bill. Me doing music and him presenting his crystal images way back in the day. And in terms of your question around where I go in nature, for Los Angeles, Malibu is place to get into nature, to get away from the city, and the air quality is much better there. So I lived there for about 11 years before moving to where I am now. Now I'm a little closer to the city. I'm in Studio City in the hills. Beautiful place, beautiful view, but certainly I can notice the air quality is much different inland than from when I was out there. And so I'm noticing that it's affecting a little bit of my breath and certain things. So I'm needing to like step up my game, do more breath work. I want to definitely be improving my supplements, or I wouldn't say supplements. I would improving my mineral, taking in the right type of minerals, which I'm starting to dial in. But the one thing we were talking about earlier too was that like a lot of people, you were in Kauai, and again, not everyone has the ability to be in that clean nature. And so I think it's important for for the other people that are listening to this to go, hey, it's easy. Like if you guys are privileged, you guys have access, you guys can get into nature, and like 90% of the world can't do that. Well, I think that would be the way where we start to come in and saying, hey, let's help everybody at least get access to higher quality water, structured water, and the right minerals, because no matter where you live, that is a way to at least build your body's resilience to handle some of the stuff that I'll say are being sprayed into the air that are not necessarily good for people. People use phrases like chemtrails, there's a lot of phrases like bioengineering, whatever it is. It's been discovered, it's been proven that stuff's in the air. People have tested air quality in different places after certain things have been seen, and we found that barium and strontium and other metals that are there that are depleting the system. And so going into nature, if you can, is good. At least you can naturally clear yourself of some of that. Do some breath work is really helpful. And I do a lot of breathing and meditation. I woke up this morning at 6 a.m. I stared at the sun for a little while. I sun gazed barefoot, and then I did about a half hour of breathing and meditation, pranayama, bhastrika, a kriya type special type of breathing. I got into transcendental meditation for 20 minutes after, then got into a Hoffman process visualization practice. So like having that daily practice builds your body's spiritual resilience. It lowers your cortisol hormone. Cortisol is the stress hormone. If you have higher cortisol, then your immune system's weaker. You're more susceptible to the stuff that's being sprayed in the air, or the poisonous food and the poisonous water. So at the least, you can start working on making your body stronger in the first place to be resilient to those things, number one. Number two, start working on decreasing the input of those things. Like try to be around better air if you can. Try to take in better water if you can. Take in better food if you can. And then also just having a better mindset, which also decreases stress. These are ways that we can, get through these times when a lot of stress is in the air intentionally, a lot of strife and polarizations in the air intentionally, a lot of negative things are in the food and water in the air intentionally. And if we want to build our resilience to those, we have to have that. We have to start building up these different tiers of strength individually. And so again, that's part of my mission, is to be able to educate people and say, hey, world's getting crazy right now. It's getting stressful. There's poison everywhere, but there's a way to withstand that, improve our diet, improve our mindset, and get healthy and be able to withstand the stuff that's coming down in the coming years.
I completely agree. And I got a friend of mine who lives in Kauai gifted me a Cornet. It's an electrosmog meter. So when I got that, I used to have a wireless charger near my bed, and I got rid of it because the idea too is, some people are electrosensitive, when you have the smart meter on the house, and, you got power lines and Wi-Fi and like all of that. But the idea is like, there's obviously being in nature, but then when we're sleeping, it's like that's when we're really trying to heal. And like I'm big into yoga and the whole philosophy of like, meditation is basically like a deep sleep, or deep sleep can be like meditation, and just how important it is to also realize like that. And I mean, you obviously get it, but some people don't because it's a combination of where they live, but then where they work, the air quality can be 10 times worse inside than outside. So it's so important to, in my opinion, just have a bunch of, I'm surrounded by houseplants, obviously at the Truth Lab, but in my home I have houseplants everywhere. And little stuff like that helps, I think too.
Yeah,
And I can't help. I will have to give a quick little plug. Maybe I'll show it real quick. It might not pop up too well. So I've been studying the moringa tree since
love moringa.
2012. So I mean, I'm just like you with supplements, man, but I get energized by all my customers who nourish their body with this, and then the wide range of benefits that they experience. And so I've done my best to just partner with what I believe is the world's best permaculture farm in South India. And
No, amazing.
I love to give respect because there's Ayurvedic medicine, there's a reason why it's like the world's oldest system of medicine and healing. And I'm a horticulturist. I'm really into understanding a plant from where it comes from. And then you have ethnobotany, the relationship between plants and people and that forming culture. So I could go on and on, but obviously moringa's traveled the world and it's all over the place. In Hawaii, it was called the Filipino flag because Filipino families were always growing them, but not just moringa, they're growing fruit trees and they're growing food because, not even 100 years ago, from my understanding, there was no grocery store. Like, where was the food? Well, it was in people's yards, and like then
Totally.
that's why, 80 years ago, chronic disease wasn't even really a thing. And
Nope.
yeah, so
Yep. And 80 years ago, my friend Gary from Human Garage has been bringing this up that 80 years ago, the percentage of body, the body was 80% water. And then 50%, it was 50 years ago, 70%. And now we're at a point where it's like 60 something. And then whatever they're teaching in schools is like a lower number, but it's actually happening over this time due to the fact that we're not really absorbing water well. And then and again, it's a lot of the things we just talked about with the air and the food and the quality of all that water. And we can actually start, if we start, and again, there's the same ratio as the water percentage is decreasing, the disease is increasing. And so these are all possible reasons. Again, causation and correlation, we got to look at which one's which and what's causing what. But that, I certainly believe that's one of them, because water is an electric field, and if we have that in our body charged the right type of way with the right type of minerals, which are basically charging elements, then we're starting to create a circuit flow of our energy and prana, which is an auric shape like a magnetic field, which again, a magnetic field has a positive and negative, and the lines go up and around like a torus-shaped donut, which is the same exact shape that the Eastern scientists study as the aura. The aura is an energy field coming up the chakras, comes up and around just like a magnetic field. So it's interesting that this shape, this torus shape, and then there's the Earth and the North Pole coming out of it like a torus shape. So you mentioned that. You mentioned also India. And India, again, has a deep root of this science, this Vedic astrology, Ayurveda, the science of life, Shilajit. I got Shilajit right here. I use Shilajit every day. It's from the 15,000 foot elevation in the Himalayan mountains. It's like 75 or more plus trace minerals that are some of the deepest, thick black tar. You take that every day. Moringa, a lot of different things that you can take that are just straight from the earth that literally give you insane amounts of energy, vitality, and everything you need. And it's not some crazy medicine or some crazy complex supplement. It's just simple stuff that the earth is already providing that can keep you energized and clear. So a lot of stuff's a lot more simple than people realize. And I think making it accessible, I think a lot of people are probably overwhelmed. Like, it's not possible and this and that. And I got to catch up. I got to get money. I got to do this. I can't think about all this stuff. That's all extra. And I'm like, trying to just make the communication more like, hey guys, actually it's the other way around. It's really simple to do this, and by doing this, it's going to help you with all that stuff. It's going to result in more abundance. It's going to result in solving a lot of the issues that everyone's trying to get in the rat race to get out of the hole. I think we got to get to the core root of things and increase our core habits as individuals, and then help culturally create a cultural revolution and a spiritual revolution, one person at a time, where people start stepping into that. Because again, people, I think, as a society, have become very codependent and are outsourcing their power to authorities and to governments and to doctors and to media and information and schools, and aren't really trusting their inner authority. And I think that if we start encouraging that, And of course, people be like, well, what do you mean you're just going to get against the crazy people running around? Like, like, no, like it's not just saying, hey, just trust yourself and don't listen to anybody anymore. It's more like, hey, let's educate and empower people into these pieces of information about these things, and they'll understand the why of it, so that people can go, oh, interesting. That's why that these systems aren't working for me. That's why I'm constantly sick. That's why there's more diabetes or obesity. That's why. Okay, well, what's the alternative? Something that most people thought was way too expensive to be healthy. No, it's actually cheaper to be healthy. It's actually cheaper in the long run, and it's more accessible, and it's cheaper because you're going to be less sick and paying money for all the medical bills. So overall, it's going to be like cumulatively way cheaper to actually step into this. And so I think what it needs to be sexy. It's not sexy, not being made sexy. It needs to be cool. Health needs to be made cool. And that's what I'm hoping to do, is bring the coolness factor so that more people will open up and go, oh, wait a second, I'm gonna give that a try. So see what happens.
I love that, man. And I don't want to ramble, but I can't help but simplify things. Like we look at water, and if it's stagnant, what happens? It breeds disease. And it's like you're saying, we're 80% water. I mean, some people say if you look at our molecular structure, it's like we basically are water. So it's like the same thing about just moving and flowing and breathing, how sometimes if people don't use intention to really exhale, as there's maybe always a little bit of stagnant energy like inside, and it's up to them to like willfully exhale it all, so then they can really take a full breath of fresh air,
Yeah.
and to keep it simple, like what you're saying, but to also kind of make it, because the whole idea, it tends to be like the more healthy we are, the more creative we are, and then it's momentum, just like how it can be momentum or domino effect, how when people start developing health issues, it's like one thing leads to another, but as they start progressing in their healing, it can be the same thing with that momentum, and somehow getting that to be, what's sexy, and obviously just trying to counter I don't even know, the propaganda or the indoctrination. I used to want to pursue a full career in the medical field. It seems like you may have considered that too,
Yeah,
but
big time.
it took me working at a nursing home and rehabilitation center to really realize that I have to focus on prevention. I have to focus on growing food. And then that's how I discovered permaculture, and one thing led to another. So I think that's a good place to cover now, because Mickey has shared with me that uh, he's trying to do some type of permaculture. I mean, there's this possibility if you just try to get enough families together that are all interested in kind of, taking their lifestyle to the next level, being more self-sufficient. And it can be a lot, for an individual to try to fully be self-sufficient. But if we have enough people together, the whole idea of whether it's getting land or trying to retrofit a neighborhood or what, but do you
Yep.
you see yourself being able to leave LA? I mean, or to
Yeah.
really be in that
Well,
community?
to start, I've been growing my own food for 15 years out here. I've had my own. When I was in Malibu, I had a whole mini farm out there, and me and several neighbors all lived off of my farm. I did my own biodynamic composting, studied from Stephen Wimbrand, who studied from another legend, from this guy named Jack, who studied directly from the Rudolf Steiner path of Austrian biodynamics. And so we made our own compost, did the whole thing with the dairy cow manure and the alfalfa and the stinging nettles and the dandelions, and just layered it up and built this beautiful compost and made this biodynamic compost I've been using for years. So it can be done out here, even in Los Angeles. We were doing it in Malibu, and then I brought a lot of compost here to Studio City Hills, where we could set it up in the yard out here, and all of our vegetables are grown here at home. But let's say someone doesn't have a backyard or something like that. If they want to get started on just living off of live food, because I think stepping in, just getting your feet wet with food, growing your own food that's alive, sprouts is the easiest and quickest way to get started. Just literally sprouting. And I've been sprouting for years. I got a whole sprouting system. And I studied a little bit from Doug Evans, who wrote like a best-selling book about sprouting. Another good friend of mine, he's out here. And he's got, we got the sprouting jars. He's got the sprouting company with the sprouting jars now. And it's the same thing. Broccoli sprouts has all the nutrients you need, the amino acids, anti-cancer fighting. It gives you everything you need. All the nutrients you need are in broccoli sprouts, and you can literally grow them in 3.5 days. or less, or if you want to get them to fill a jar up, maybe 5 days, and you can grow like multiple other types of sprouts like fava beans and mung bean sprouts and chickpea sprouts that have higher protein content. And so it's really easy to do. You literally just take seeds, put them in a jar with holes in the top. It's a special type of jar. Get a sprouting jar with the mesh lid, and you soak them, and then you flip the thing over the next morning, and then you rinse them out 1 or 2 times a day, and that's it. And I think the average person can at least do that. And so I've been posting a lot about that on my stories. Say, hey, I know everyone's like asking about growing their own food, but everyone's like, oh, someday I can grow my own food when I get a piece of land. I'm like, hey, get started, because you get that feeling of growing your own food. That's going to make you want to grow more food. Maybe you'll go from there and make a little microgreens thing with a little bit of soil on your counter. And maybe from there, maybe you'll do some little potters on the patio, some little planters, and grow some herbs. It's sort of a thing that you start building a habit of. So that's kind of what we talked about, of making things simple, is at least start simple, get into the habit of it, build the habit of growing food, and get in the habit of eating your own homegrown food and what that feels like to charge it with your own energy and your own love. And there's something different about eating the food that you grew. So that's one piece I wanted to talk about. And then in terms of like the permaculture stuff and land like that, we have a bunch of mutual friends that are in Texas that have a couple hundred acres over there called Sovereignty Ranch. That's Ryland, Ryland and Engelhardt and Molly. They're Cafe Gratitude and all these famous restaurant chains from California that are these vegan restaurant chains. So they got Sage, Gracias Madre, and Cafe Gratitude. Well, they moved out to Texas also, along with a lot of the people that made the exodus from California and got a chunk of land right now. And so there's an opportunity there for some of us that are friends to, that's one example of a way to pool in together to resources, have the land, have a mini farm, and have different types of skills that everyone's bringing to the table, and have that. And that's more of like, that's like the Lark and Rose kind of ideas too, of community living and building little sovereign jurisdictions where everyone's managing themselves, governing themselves, figuring out the legal ways to grab the allodial title and get your land separate and unplug it from the Bureau of Land Management, so it actually becomes your private title. Because most of the people that think they own their homes don't. All they own is a public fiction, but they haven't actually put their flag in the ground with the land rights and the mineral rights and the water rights. And that's a special type of legal process to do that. But you do that, and now you're not subject to all the permits of the state, which are very much anti-freedom type permits that slow people down from doing things that they might want to do to advance their property and to homestead and to tap into the water and those type of skills that are important, I think, in this world of self-governance and self-empowerment, and where a lot of those skills have been lost. And I think encouraging people to gain those skills is great. So again, if you have the resources to pull together with people and grab land, that's a higher step. If you want to start with just learning how to grow your own food in your kitchen counter, that's an initial step. But I think being in the journey is what's most important. Being in the question and learning this stuff is what's important, because you'll feel called when it's time to do the next step. But I think it's starting the path of discovering and asking questions and uncovering truths, which I think is the important thing to at least start with wherever someone might be on their path,
Yeah, I love your emphasis on simplicity. Da Vinci said, like, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And then we think about children because they're going to be the leaders of tomorrow, right? And we want the youth to be healthier, stronger, smarter than we are, right? Because imagine, like, just like you are the result of everything your parents did, and it's really amazing, like, for you to be as creative as you are and so on, so it's just, imagine like the next generation. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, I'm well aware as you are of like Montessori schools and maybe
Yeah.
Waldorf schools. We're obviously
Waldorf.
part of the curriculum, but it's like where I live, the biggest landowner is the Pinellas County School. So sometimes, it takes so much persistence, because I was trying to make phone calls over a decade ago, when I discovered permaculture, trying to get gardens at schools, or even ideas like what you're saying, like sprouts or something, like involve it in the curriculum, but have it be part of the cafeteria, too. So it's, on one hand, it's baby steps, but then also it's like the time has come, in my opinion, because,
I think it's come.
yeah, COVID was a test. I think you agree. It was kind of a test to say how many people are going to buy this, buy what they were trying to sell us, because as we know, there's like the whole revelation of the method, or kind of the idea that, like, we are consenting to this, with Lark and Rose, and this whole idea of like consenting to government, to consenting to being ruled over by people that frankly aren't as creative and intelligent as we are. and they rule us through deception to a certain extent, and they just take for granted how a lot of people are just wanting the best, but they don't have time to like dig through all the rabbit holes to like get to the bottom of this, you know? So thank you for
Totally.
being such a passionate truth seeker. And I'm really looking forward to staying, you know, in touch with you. And I can't wait. I mean, because of being friends with you on Facebook, I saw a little teaser of the musical, and I thought it was so great because I know obviously those were Mickey's kids, like Chase and JP Willis, and I was just seeing,
JP Sears, yeah.
yeah, sorry, JP Willis, yeah, JP Sears, but you know, just the laughing and the good time and the
The
music.
joy.
Yeah,
And
despite the fact that, like, yeah, you know, there's been this, lack of better words, satanic agenda going on.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, again, that's the thing, is the agenda is there to take joy. And so it's up for us as creators to actually create our joy, to step into joy. You know, what of a lot of the agenda is about weakening the resolve, weakening the joy. You know, creating confusion, creating people fighting against each other. You know, they use phrases like controlled opposition and Hegelian dialectic. You've probably heard those phrases that have been around thousands of years, which are simple things. And again, all I can do is give props where props are due. Hey, if you're going to control the world, this is how you do it. You create these things, you confuse everybody, you get people fighting against each other, you tell them to look over here while you're doing the thing over there. There's a skill to doing it. And so I got to give props that, hey, whoever's doing that, whoever's involved in that's doing a great job of creating that skill. That's all. And at the same time, as someone who also has my own level of skill, I can see it. And because I can see it, I can go, okay, now I can Aikido and ninja Jedi my way around it, and then hopefully empower others to do the same, right? Because at the end of the day, it's human. It's just all part of human nature. It's part of survival of the fittest. So it's a part of being human to compete and to learn things. And so when some people are raising the bar, maybe with evil, that also tests us and pushes us to raise our bar in resilience or into intellect or skills or strengths to build and to compete in a way with good. And so I'm over here, and a lot of us, like yourself and Mickey, and a lot of us are alliance of good that are competing to create skills and how to build structures that are stronger to withstand these other forces that are there. And I just look at it as more like physics. There's just forces that are happening. I don't like to get into the negative, like, oh, there's just people that are doing this and they that, and the government's doing this, because that's not an empowering story. I'd rather look at it as like, oh, there's some forces of physics happening this way. And so I got to look at it like, what is my force of physics going this way? And how can I be a piece of nature operating in the best way that I can to maneuver around this thing? And I like to focus on that. And so getting back to joy, joy is one of the things that if you have less joy, you'll be more stressed. And when people are stressed, they don't make as good decisions. We make harsh decisions, we make rough decisions, we make panic decisions, we make rush decisions. We don't do things as efficiently when we're stressed and when we're not in joy. And so I think that's a big thing to get to back to simplicity, is like, hey, instead of focusing on all this complicated stuff, let's just focusing on increasing joy, reducing stress, and all of a sudden we'll have clarity and we'll make better decisions. So let's just keep it simple, just like that. And I've got a couple more shout outs to give, because like we're talking about people that are doing stuff. I've got my partner, my wife to be, Jennifer Esteban. She's out there. She's created Friendsmates, which is a community play, because we're talking about community and permaculture and ways to do that. She's created a platform in a world where, yeah, rents are going higher. A lot of people are not even able to live in their own place. And, like a lot of people dread, like, oh, having a roommate's like a negative thing. She's created an entire system called friendsmates.com, where people can start getting joyful about having roommates, because it's actually a community platform where people are encouraged and supported in having successful community homes and community living situations. And I actually live in one of those now with her and a few other people, where it was curated and designed with entrepreneurial mindsets, and everyone living in this house has an entrepreneurial type of spirit and action, and we all work together and have a community-based house on that, and people can have their own types of houses catered to whatever they're interested in. If you're like into fitness, you can have a bunch of people that work out together, or a bunch of vegans, or a bunch of musicians. But she's created a platform for that, which aligns with a lot of the stuff we're talking about. Like if you want to get into gardening and growing, people can start doing that together and get organized on a single platform to be able to learn how to do that. So she's got that started. It's already going in a couple cities, including Los Angeles, and she's looking to get some funding to expand that, to be able to reach the world with a solution that can create more of this community-based stuff. And then another really close friend of mine, a best friend, is Will Shares, who is on the front lines standing up for community and standing up on the Larkin Rose path of people stepping into their rights and not adhering to the authority systems, not even engaging, not even acknowledging that these rules even exist and that we're all free beings. And done it in Los Angeles during the COVID lockdowns. He organized people with Love Unity. He created Love Unity Initiative, and he had people gathering on the beaches of Santa Monica for Earth Day. Thousands of people when no one's supposed to gather. You're supposed to have permits and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, hey, this is an assembly. Are we not allowed to assemble? Are we not allowed to exercise our free speech? Are we not allowed to do these things? And they're like, this is an event. You need to have a permit. He's like, you guys are saying this is an event. Is this an event? Like asking questions back. Or is this not an assembly? These are a bunch of individuals. Each person here has the right to individually come here. We just happen to all be doing that at the same time, right? So think about that. If each person with their own volition has the right to show up at the same time at a place, and they happen to each be doing that, and there happens to be thousands of them, that doesn't make it an event. That makes it thousands of individuals exercising their right to assemble and exercising their free speech and just happening to choose to organize together. And there's no permit required for any of that. That's all state statute. That's all nonsense. And he's been proving that time and time again. And now he's doing it in San Diego, meeting on the beaches of San Diego, and people are doing yoga on the beach, and the cities. It's a battle. It's a battle because they're basically retraining the system that we're not going to comply. Because again, you talked about this a few minutes ago. It's like if people are complying, then the system is going to basically believe that's what you're going to do, and they're going to you give them an inch, they take a mile, right? So it's up to us as individuals to go, hey, you know what? We're not going to do that. We're going to stand up for our rights, stand up for ourselves, and really, it's not about our rights that are gifted by some authority. It's our own human rights that we gave ourselves, that God gave us. We have those rights. We're born with those rights, and if we exercise those rights and we stand up for those rights with our actions, which involve not complying with things, with certain types of language, with doing it with love and empowering other people to do it, we can retrain the systems of authority that we're not going to play their game anymore, and they'll have to follow suit. Instead of us being trained by them to become slaves, we're training them that we're going to stand up for our rights, and that we're not here to harm you either. We don't want to harm them. We're not oh, the police, we hate the police. It's more like we're just letting them know that we're doing our thing, and we don't really need Big Daddy to help us right now. We're good. We got ourselves. We can take care of ourselves. We're responsible. We got this. We don't really need you right now. And we're, and we'd love to work together with you to protect. And we'd love to also have some of our people volunteer to be part of our private security and private militia and operate more in a private capacity to provide the same, if not better quality versions of those things that the public is providing with their monopolized police force. Because you could do a private version of that, and Larkin talks about this, and I talk about this, is you can basically have private versions of pretty much everything that the public has, and they'll be better, higher quality, just the way Uber does their thing. And when you order an Uber, it's a private thing, and whoever's closest shows up. Imagine if private security and police were like that, where it was super private and it was higher quality. And now when a crime happens, they show up within 3 minutes. Because right now they show up like an hour later. They don't show up. They don't do anything. They don't catch anybody. No one gets caught. It's all just a formality. It's a monopolized police force. It's public. They're not actually really solving most of the crimes, and it's not against the police themselves. The people that are signing up to do this probably wanted to sign up to do some helpful thing. But they probably could have a better system to do that in if it was allowed to be private, where whoever's the closest person showed up 3 minutes later, you're catching the robber, because there's a network of private, blockchain style nodes alerting each other. And that's where the future of AI and blockchain comes in, because you can solve a lot of problems using these new technologies and decentralizing essentially everything and creating a much higher quality and faster and more efficient version of electricity grids, of security, of even military. All that stuff can be done in a decentralized way, in a more efficient way.
Well, and exactly. And so you said your fiance with the friends mate?
Yeah, friends mates.
Or is that a link, or is there something?
Yeah, it was just friends, literally friendsmates.com,
Really?
And it's
I tried maybe friendsmate.com.
Yeah, friends plural mates. Friends mates. Yeah, friendsmates.com. And if you go there, people can go there and right now it's in Los Angeles, but ideally if it can be scaled, this could be a thing, like a decentralized thing where there's no charge, there's no fees, where people are just organizing and able to say, hey, I've got a house It's opening up. I got a room opening up in a month. It's like, oh, I'm looking for a place. And then they can form their own agreements and live together and form these pods of community living in multiple places, you know?
Well, and then when you brought up like the idea of private security, did you ever hear of an organization called MedMob before? It was
That sounds familiar. I'm not sure.
I was part of it. And some of the bigger groups, allegedly, I know there was one in Texas, they go to state legislatures and meditate. But in my little local group, we went by some jails because it was all
Cool.
about the Maharishi effect, how by meditating and being peaceful and joyful and breathing and synchronizing breathing with even just a small group of, a few people, 10 people, a dozen. Obviously, at some of the legislatures, they had a lot more. But the idea is like crime gets reduced.
It
And it's
does.
amazing to really think about like that, of what our world could be like. And there's different people. I mean, we obviously have to look at people like Gandhi who never held a position in government and look at the type of influence, he can have. And it shows that someone doesn't have to be president or governor to really like try to enact certain policies that really help to raise awareness and
Mhm.
consciousness. But yeah,
Yeah, we have the ability to impact from multiple different positions in life, and again, Gandhi is a great example. Bob Marley, again, I bring him up again as another example. There's people that have the charisma and the energy. And when you bring up the example of the Maharishi effect, I mean, the Art of Living Foundation is another thing I'm a part of, which is basically Sri Ravi Shankar, where they've got millions of people meditating together. And it literally creates an actual measurable ripple effect of increased peace in an area. And that's when we start studying harmonic resonance. Like if you're familiar with a tuning fork, right? A tuning fork, if you hit it, it vibrates at whatever frequency it's set to. But when it's vibrating, it's sending out a resonance in the area, and anything else that has a similar resonance is going to also start vibrating at the same time. And so that's the idea of harmonic resonance. And so if we realize that we're actually vibration, we talked about water before, and our voices are vibrating and our entire body's vibrating. If we get ourselves into a certain vibration, like a healing vibration or a higher vibration, we can resonate that out, and we can actually create ripples so that other things around us start coming up and resonating at the same frequency with us. So you can actually bring up resonance. You can also bring down resonance too. So that's why it's really important to focus on, like, let me bring my vibration as high as I can into creating the highest manifestations, affirmations for my body, for my mind, my spirit, and also for the world around me, sending out those healing vibrations. We're all computers. And so we can program ourselves. We can program our minds, program our bodies. We can program our fascia to release trauma and stress from our body, just like any other computer. It's all really like encryption. And it's the way that computers are programmed. We can do it to ourselves. So the same type of way, we can increase our resonance, our vibration around us. And then you get back into what you were saying with multiple people doing it together at the same time. We're creating a really strong ripple of resonance that can go that much further. And so I was at an event in 2006 in India where 3 million people gathered and meditated together. 3 million. And I was on stage singing and for those people, and then there was guided meditation and breathing where everyone was breathing in sync. 3 million people. And that resonance, I had vivid dreams for over a year and a half after that I've never had before, from just being in that, whatever it planted in my body. But I can imagine, like, the area, this was in India, what happened to that region around there. I can only imagine, like, how much that would affect it. How much did it affect the planet and the world? And so the more we can encourage that kind of thing, again, we got Rescue the Republic coming up in a couple of weeks. They're estimating 300,000 to 500,000 people. I'm going to be on stage with Russell Brand and a few others, and with Gary from Human Garage, and Mickey Willis and Del Bigtree and RFK, and a lot of us are going to be up there, and people are going to be talking about different things. But I'm going to be up there very specifically to bring everyone together to do some synchronized breathing and some chanting of hundreds of thousands of people that I'm going to lead them in. And then we're going to go right into some of these really big anthemic songs that I wrote for the musical, as well as my new Unity anthem, Together We Rise, which is going to be coming out in about a month, which was originally written as the Independent National Convention, the official INC anthem for the INC that's happening in Denver in a couple weeks, which Zach Bush is going to be at, and a lot of other great leaders and speakers are going to be there too. So those are all the things that are coming up that are big events that can be these Maharishi effect type events, where we're going to these political spheres and bringing health and wellness, bringing consciousness, bringing breathing and meditation into the political arena, because that's where it's really needed anyway. Those are stressed out people dealing with big decisions. Imagine, again, lower stress, better decision making, bringing now lower stress into the political arena. We can create a ripple that can affect the planet, a better political decision making. And if I can be a part of that on September 29th and in Denver on September 17th and 19th, these big political events, I'm excited to bring this consciousness to that arena and as high capacity as possible and actually create a measurable ripple on the planet. Because some of those people that are there literally can change the planet because of the positions they're in. I mean, Trump might be there. There's a lot of talk about some pretty major people being at this thing. I'm like, I don't care who I'm in front of, like whether it's Kamala Harris or Biden, I'm more about just bringing healing vibrations to everybody because I think everyone needs to have less stress and everyone needs to have more joy. I don't care who you are. And so I'm just more like bringing that to everybody.
That's so beautiful, man. And MedMob kind of faded away, and at the same time, this was around 2010, there was a website called Do As One. And it was amazing because it would have virtual breathing rooms and meditation rooms, and the whole idea was to sync up with people across the world. And through that, I mean, I was really deep into Kundalini yoga at the same time, but I realized that just like breathing is kind of a more fundamental function than thinking, it's almost like the internet's purpose is to synchronize our breathing because think about it, man. It's just really mind blowing. Just people are kind of not, I don't want to say stuck in their ways, but it's just routine, routine, routine. And just to really think about an individual taking the time, like you did this morning. I mean, I try to do to just breathe, but then to really have enough of us and who knows what's possible. So thank you for everything you're doing, man. This was really incredible because I tried to, try to look you up a little bit, but I'm like, you know what? We're just going to have some conversations here. And, I'm not sure if you knew this, but when I was working for National Health Federation, we actually were the fiscal sponsor for pandemic, because at the
Oh,
time,
cool.
yeah, so it was a nice way to help out. And through that, that's how I interviewed Mickey before, and I interviewed Del
Nice.
Tree, and I kind of started helping our lobbyist with like a monthly health freedom, brainstorming and everything. And yeah, so one thing's led to another, and I'm
Well,
so
it sounds like you know the whole crew already. That's great. Those are all my peeps.
yeah, no, and I've been in touch with Mickey quite a bit with some of the recent, truth seeking stuff and talking about people like Candace Owens
Oh
or
yeah.
Tucker Carlson, people that are really pushing the envelope now that they don't have that corporate leash on them. And just to realize like where this is all leading to and to just stay so humble and so grateful, but while also realizing it's a choice to, be courageous and talk about this stuff when yeah, sometimes it's more comfortable to just, I don't know, do other things, but we're truth warriors, right? So we have to
Yeah. I mean,
do
we get to put the stuff out there, and people, people we know and people we love are gonna that may not get it yet are gonna be think that we're dangerous and that we're out there spreading misinformation and that it's gonna hurt people. Like, oh, you're spreading. Like, I remember during the early days of 2020, 2021, people were posting stuff like, hey, I think you should, I'm all for everyone making their own choice, and I'm not even anti-vax. Like, this is not me. I'm saying I would see people post like, I'm not anti-vax, but I think people should have the choice to, to make their own health decision. And people even saying that were getting yelled at, like, that's dangerous that you're saying that. You should be encouraging everyone to get vaxxed because if the less it's the anti-vaxxers that's causing all of this and that. And it's like, like just even saying something, even loving, that's not even that controversial. People are right now on edge, jumping on each other pretty heavily. And that's why I think at the core root, you can get into these debates online and try to get into this like back and forth with one person at a time, or we can focus on like actually de-stressing humanity so that people can be more open to listen again. But I think there's a core root issue is that people aren't really listening. So if you get into these little arguments, they're not going to go anywhere. But if we can actually work on somehow shifting the vibration of humanity overall, we might actually open up the space for people to go, okay, we may not agree, but I'm open to hear your perspective. What is it that you're saying, versus you just being the enemy that's trying to kill grandma or whatever, like weird NLP programming everyone was kind of fed during those last chunk of years. It's got crazy.
yeah, no, it did, but luckily the totalitarian nightmare is hopefully coming to an end and not gonna envelop us, right? We have to, have the the torch of truth.
Well,
So
it's up to us. I mean, and whether I don't think the forces of the totalitarian nightmare are getting any weaker. I think they're getting stronger, but I think we're waking up more. But it doesn't mean that the next big wave of test is gonna is I think it's coming. And so I think we got to be that much. That's why we're having this Rescue the Republic event, because a lot of people are aware, like, hey, there's some big level stuff coming. There's some stuff in the global agendas, the World Economic Forum related agendas. There's some big stuff coming down the pipeline around new pandemics and new controls around CBDCs and financial systems to get people under the grids and controls and social stuff. A lot of biometric data being taken. There's stuff around carbon taxation. There's more geoengineering. So I think the stuff is only increasing on that end, but the fact that we're having these conversations means that we're also becoming more aware, and more people are becoming more aware. So our resilience is growing. And so I think it's just about growing our army of people, growing the number of people, growing our awareness, growing our reach, and also growing the tools and the technologies to actually withstand this, which, again, getting into new types of internet. Right now, people are depending on Google and depending on AWS, Amazon Web Servers. We're still we're still privy to those things being shut down, and we're being privy to power being shut down, internet being shut down at any minute. But I know people that are literally already building like replacements, IPFS, internet, the internet of the IoT, Internet of Things, decentralized internet servers, ways to create blockchain nodes on Bitcoin of small little lunchbox size internet things where we can literally have our own internet and no one can turn it off. We have full control as a population, as a people. And those are the types of things that I'm starting to be around. I'm around inventors and really innovative people that have created the technology already to do this stuff. And to be able to have our own decentralized societies where we're not depending on even new social media, because stuff's being shadow banned and everyone's still using. We're still on Facebook. We're still using these things because these other ones are being created in parallel, but not enough people are on it. But if we start spreading the word, hey, we're all starting to grow these decentralized social media platforms, these decentralized uncensorable internets, these decentralized power grids where no one can shut the power off, where the central, Southern California Edison, which is like can shut off all of LA's power with one snap of the finger. Well, if we created our own internet, our own power grids, and had our ability to tap into that and fed into our own private grids, we wouldn't be a victim to that anymore. So I think we just need more of that.
yeah, no, I agree. So the Restore the Republic, that's September 29th.
Rescue the Republic, September 29th in DC, where it's a massive event on the National Monument, like where the monument is. And there's a big national mall where they have all those big rallies. You've seen them probably a million times. Like, that's where hundreds of thousands of people gather. So it's pretty big. Brett Weinstein just went on Joe Rogan, I think a day or two ago, and announced it. Russell Brand's announcing it. They're all the biggest players are announcing this thing. And the website is jointheresistance.org. But you can just search at this point #Rescue the Republic. It's everywhere. It's on X, Twitter. It's all over the place, man. It's going to be pretty huge.
I'm trying to remember, there was a big medical freedom rally, I thought January 2022. And if I recalled, I thought there was almost 1 million people there or something like that.
So that was Defeat the Mandates. So it's the same exact people. So it's the same production. It's Defeat the Mandates and Rage Against the War Machine and a few other organizations, including Brett Weinstein. We got Matt Toon. We got Angela McArdle. She's the head of the Libertarian Party. All really close friends of mine. Have taken all of them into one now even bigger event. So Defeat the Mandates was that one. We did the LA version, which was about we had about 40 or something 50,000 people in LA in front of City Hall. I performed that too. If you go on my Instagram, that's literally one of the first videos, is the video from the Defeat the Mandates LA. So they had Defeat the Mandates DC as well, which is the one you're talking about. And so now the same exact people that are organizing that, except even bigger, are organizing this one.
See, that's amazing, because no matter what, we can't forget that we're humans here. And even though we live in, the United States of America, when I was talking about that totalitarian nightmare, it's like we can look at what's going on in Europe right now, the United Kingdom. I was actually born in Canada. When it comes to some of the loss of religious freedom, or the idea of carbon tracking for surveillance because the vax digital ID didn't work out, and
Sure.
look at places, you know what I mean? So it's really interesting to realize, like, we just have to continue on this path, but to realize we looking out, for the rest of humanity. It's crazy to think as living here, we're like 5%, I think, of the whole population, even though some people get into maybe there's a little bit of a deception around, is there really 8 billion of us here, or so
I have
on.
no idea.
Yeah, but I guess to kind of wrap it up, do you know the exact date that the musical will come out? You said in like a month, I'm assuming. Does that mean?
Yeah, yeah. I know the date, but I'm not supposed to say it yet. I think we're doing the PR announcement probably the next week, but it'll be in about a month.
No, but it's been definitely a lot of anticipation, that's for sure. So I can't wait.
Yep. We
Is
got
there
a pretty big machine and PR campaign and a lot of major people with major reach that are aware of it. It's going to be a big what's it called? Coordinated. It's going to be a big coordinated announcement and a coordinated watch party. And it's going to be pretty epic. We got a great channel. It's going to that'll premiere it for us. It's going to be an exclusive, and it's going to be super fun. And like I said, I'm not going to give away the date or where it's going to be streamed, but you'll know. Everyone's going to know. You're not. It's going to be all over everywhere. Like you can't miss it. It's going to be blasted.
cool? Well, I can't wait to just edit this video a little bit and then put it out there, and I'll share with you.
Yeah,
You could always later on add little links so when people watch this in the future,
yeah, yeah,
them to find links like the Friends Mate and
yeah. And my friend Will, who does Love Unity, and then the Sprouts, Doug Evans, and Rescue the Republic and INC. All the different things that are all pieces of the bigger pie. That all and everyone's just. It's just for me. I'm just proud to know these heroes and be friends with them, and that they're all doing their thing, and just to be a part of, I'm a part of a lot of them because I've volunteered myself as an artist to be like, hey, you guys are doing this amazing thing. I'd love to come, share my vibe there if you'll have me. And like people keep saying yes, and I get these amazing opportunities now to share the vibes at all these great events.
yeah, and I'm trying to wrap this up, but I just got to say, just because you're like a living example of it. So when I started learning about permaculture, and obviously you have a background in economics, a lot of, I love Thomas Sowell, but
Yeah.
kind of a vision I have is a skill-based economy where basically
Yes.
it's all about, everybody kind of acquires the skill of teaching people. And then it's a matter of, okay, well, what are you an expert at? What do you love to teach? And then the idea of people knowing, well, what do you want to learn? What do you want to become an expert in? And we kind of get out of this way of thinking that modern institutions and academia has kind of indoctrinated us into this is how you learn skills. Because like I said earlier in the synchronicity with your company being with polymath, and
Oh
then
yeah, Universal Polymath Productions. Yeah.
exactly, and then I love, like I said, autodidactic and all that stuff. So anyways, I mean, I'm sure you resonate with that, something like with the all along the lines, because to realize like abundance, because I know we brought up that term human nature, but sometimes I just try to emphasize, in my opinion, it's more of like a conditioning where like if people are conditioned to believe in like scarcity and not so much the abundance, then yeah, it can bring out that stress response. And as we know, some people unfortunately have lived most of their life like with that cortisol, with that stress, because
Yep.
one day they sleep, they wake up, and it's like the same thing, and so just to realize that we live in this abundant, incredible universe, and the sky's the limit. So I'm so grateful, man, to have been able to be blessed with all your knowledge and all your expertise and everything you're doing. And I look forward to staying in touch with you. And thanks again. And if you have any, closing thoughts, and I think I've already directed people how they can stay in touch with you and everything you're doing. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I mean, like I think we covered all the things, and I think I think the main thing is that the possibilities are always there. And I think a lot of people get to a point where we get doubt. It's very human, and it's okay to feel some doubt or to be like, I wonder if things are going to be okay. Is the world going to be okay? But I believe it is. I believe we can literally author and design and manifest everything we want, all of our desires, all of our possibilities, starting with the individual first. If we heal our internal, and if we expand and activate our internal universe, that affects what our external universe is and what it looks like and how it appears to us and how it forms around us. And I think if we just really step each of us into that individual, personal self-empowerment, personal sovereignty, responsibility, and then deeper than that is stewardship, which is like the stewardship gets into community and being responsible for not only ourselves, but our families and our communities around us. And if we each do that, imagine a society of people all operating in responsibility together. That's the type of vibe I think is possible. And so that's what I'm excited about sharing. Team Humanity is the community I'm working on. I've got teamhumanity.world. That's the place where I'm going to start gathering people together. And that leads really to DPAK World also. It's all the same place. But Team Humanity is sort of the bigger vision of the community I'm looking to just be shouting out, like hashtag Team Humanity. You know, and everyone's on Team Humanity. It's not mine. It's just something I'm going to, and I think other people should hashtag Team. Everyone should have their own Team Humanity. You know, I just happen to be using that name a lot. I know other people do already, but I think it's a cool phrase that really makes you feel like, hey, it doesn't matter. Are you Israel or Gaza? Are you Ukraine or Russia? Are you Kamala or Trump? No, I don't know about all that. I'm Team Humanity. Whatever's the best for the people, I'm Team Humanity. And let's work together on that. And I think that's just, to me, the simplest way to really deal with the world. It's just like focus on Team Humanity.
Yeah, well, Team Humanity, let's go. Full speed
Team
ahead.
Humanity.
Well, have a blessed rest of your evening, or maybe is it evening yet, or almost, and wonderful weekend. And I look
Thank you
forward
so much.
much. And if there's anything I can ever do for you, man, I'm happy to help. So,
Yeah, great chat. We'll stay in touch. I think there's a lot more coming down the pipelines. We'll have more chats, and the fact that you already aligned with Mickey and Dell, like it's all community. So let's keep it going.
right. Sounds great. All right, brother. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Peace.
Talk to you soon. Producer Rob, nice to meet you too. I saw that little message.
All right.
Great stuff. All right, guys.
Thanks,
Peace
everybody.
out, man.
In the Truth Lab.
TruthLab.